Welcome to the GCN Tech Show.
Coming up this week, I've got a new t-shirt on. We've got an update to the classified hub. We've got shoes for cycling indoors, funky new cranks, and also some 3D heat maps from Strava.
And our main talking point this week is we're going to have an analysis of the Tour de France Stage 5 time trial and look at the power numbers required to win it or just come in the top 10. How good are these guys?
First up, let's take a look at last week's poll. So last week, we had two polls actually. One was a bit of fun, one was a little bit more serious. So first up, we had, what do you think of the new Chrome Trek Segafredo bikes? Turns out 90% of people voted for hot, only 10%.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, it was a very cool looking bikes.
Yeah, they look mint. Our next poll was, do you think the Tour de France aeroplane should be painted yellow?
89% of viewers said, hell yes, that's a great idea.
Brilliant, isn't it? I think we should make a dedicated video on the Tour de France aeroplane. Maybe we go and we paint it yellow.
I think we should do our next holiday in it.
Yes, clearly we've got to give the fans what they want.
Yes, we have. But this week, we're going to be taking a look at some of the time trial performances in the Tour de France, taking a close look and a deep dive into the data and tech behind it.
Yeah, and one of the great things about the Tour de France now is that many of the riders upload their ride data to apps like Strava and post their power numbers on there as well. They don't redact them. And I'm a big fan of this because, well, it's very transparent in the sport, and it makes them more relatable because you can compare what you can do as a sort of mortal compared to them, and you just see how strong and good an athlete they are.
The first place we're going to start is the time trials, obviously, because this is somewhere clear where science and data is very important, and there's always a significant difference between lots of the different riders. Stage 5 of the Tour de France was a 27-kilometre individual time trial, and we can see Richard Carapaz averaged 367 watts for his effort, which is very impressive, isn't it, considering he's such a slight rider?
Yes, I mean, as a small guy, he's listed on Pro Cycling Stats as being 170 centimetres tall and 62 kilograms, which equates to 5.9 watts per kilo for 33.5 minutes in an aero position on a TT bike, which is seriously impressive. And it might even be over 6 watts per kilo because he could be lighter than what he's listed out on Pro Cycling Stats.
So his average is over 30 miles an hour, which means his drag coefficient is very low. So we can plug some of these numbers into tools and apps, for example, which know to take into account things like the weather, for example.
Yeah, the exact weather he faced.
The exact weather. Well. And then we can also make some fairly accurate assumptions that we can put in based on things like his equipment, for example, because we can quite clearly see that, can't we?
Yeah, so things such as his drivetrain efficiency, the rolling resistance of the tyres, we can see the tyres that he was using, and the total system mass. We know roughly what his bike weighs because, well, we've weighed it. And overall, this comes out with a drag coefficient for the average of the time trial of 0.179, which might just be a meaningless number to you, but take it from us, that is seriously low. That's a very slippery rider.
So 0.179, that's what people refer to as their CdA number, yeah?
Yes, his CdA. Yeah. Now, we'll go into a bit more detail as to other riders to give that some context in a minute, but the first thing to point out is that is his average CdA for that time trial. It's not what you'd call his absolute CdA. So it's taking into account.
It's in a variable environment,
yes.
Isn't it?
So there's things such as the environment's constantly changing because of things like outriders, and also he's coming out of his aero position to go around corners and on the climbs and things like that. So if you were to just take his drag coefficient in isolation on just a flat, straight stretch of road, that would sort of be his absolute drag coefficient. But within the context of comparing it against other riders in the Tour de France, this is fine.
Even the vehicles have a bit of an impact, don't they?
Yeah,
Some of the support, obviously you've got the motorbike rides, the TV bike, the team cars, although they are clearly told to keep their distance, it does still have a little bit of an impact.
Yeah, even the funneling through the crowds on the course and the barriers and stuff, it can create a channel of air. And the helicopters as well.
No way.
No.
The helicopter can't make a difference.
Right. So this is something, right. So another thing that can make a difference in the Tour de France, and it doesn't really happen now because it's so high.
Okay, yeah.
But in the past, the helicopter. So speaking to...
How low are they flying this thing?
Speaking to Sean Kelly down at the pub.
Right.
And he's a man with lots of great stories.
Yeah.
And he was saying that back in the 80s, they would get, when they had like an Italian race with an Italian guy they wanted to win the race, the helicopter would like fly quite low, like behind them, like helping push them along in the time trial.
That's incredible. You say that, I've seen a little clip from, maybe like the 2000s or maybe even more recent than that, of somebody, a really low flying helicopter who's actually blown a rider off on like a cobbled section.
Just fly low enough just to give them a little push along, and then when the guy we don't want to win is doing the time trial, just fly a bit in front of him and just push him back headwind the whole way.
God. We've gone really off topic.
That doesn't happen now. That doesn't happen now. The helicopter's really high.
Yeah, back onto Tour de France time trial data next. Yeah. What this means is we can actually compare riders from the same day with the same conditions, in a fair and comparative way. But what we can't do is compare against riders that weren't there from previous times, such as Filippo Ganna, Bradley Wiggins, for example, because for that, we'd have to know the rider's absolute CdA number, and that only comes from testing in a controlled environment.
Yeah. Other notable rider there published his power was Lutsenko.
Yeah.
407 watts
That's
for 33
incredible,
minutes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and he's said to be 74 kilograms, but I think he's a bit lighter than that now. He's turned into more of a sort of GC rider. And of course, the big one we all want to know, Tadej Pogačar. Stormed to victory, 1 minute and 30 he put into Carapaz.
That was insane, wasn't it?
Yeah, a huge margin. Now, Pogačar hasn't posted his power numbers, but because the other riders have, we can use them as a sort of yardstick to make fairly accurate estimations as to the power that Pogačar could well have had to produce.
So we can make calculations and assumptions based on his height, his weight, his equipment, so his approximate CdA numbers, and then obviously working back from the time differences from other riders.
Yes, and the first thing to point out is that we can make the assumption that his drag coefficient is slightly not as good as Richard Carapaz. And this is down to the fact that he's considerably bigger and heavier than Richard Carapaz. Bigger riders present more area to the wind and are slightly less aerodynamic. And the other reason is, looking at his equipment, the biggest thing is skin suit. And
the race Lecoq Sportive, the sporty cockerel skin suit.
The sporty cockerel skin suit that he was wearing for leading the Young Riders competition is nowhere near as aerodynamic, notoriously so, than like a cutting-edge Castelli suit or from one of the other brands that the riders would wear.
So Tadej Pogačar is 175 centimetres tall and 65 kilograms in weight, although presumably a little bbit lighter for the Tour de France.
That's according to Pro Cycling Stats.
Yeah.
And therefore, if we make the estimation that he's slightly less aero, then give him a CdA of 0.18 for the time trial, for the average of the course, then that comes out as an average power output to get the time that he did of 416 watts.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, which comes out as 6.4 watts per kilo, which is massive. Now, if we then make him a bit less aerodynamic and assume that he, we do a range, it's more probable, and give him a CdA of 0.185, then that comes out as an average power output of 425 watts, which is 6.5 watts per kilo.
So to put that into context, actually, let's take that watts per kilo figure and calculate that for me. So I know I'm about 81 kilos at the moment, a little bit lighter than I have been. So that would be the equivalent of me doing like 520 watts for 30 minutes, which is insane. I mean, at the moment, I'd probably struggle to do that for more than a few minutes. Yeah,
well, it's mightily impressive. And, consider he's done that for 32 minutes. And in a TT position as well.
Yeah, the crazy thing now that you mentioned in the time trial position is that we see most riders don't produce the same amount of power in that time trial position as what they do out on their road bikes, for example, because they're just not quite so accustomed to it, are they?
Yeah, so you could expect that he'd be capable of, both him and Carapaz would be capable of producing more power on a road bike, on a climb.
It's even more insane.
I know. Now, full disclaimer on these calculations we've done, there are sources of error. First obvious one being the accuracy of power meters. Now, you can see, if you look at the data on Strava, Harry Sweeney posted his power. He did really well in the time trial, and he averaged just 260 watts. Now, at 6'1", I'm 6'1".
Yeah.
I don't think he's that aero unless the cameras missed him and he was riding a recumbent. But like that, so that's clearly out. And then other things can affect as well, such as, motorcycle outriders getting close to other riders, and, how quick riders are through the technical sections and the corners can have a big impact on their overall time and things like that. And just how they pace the course, where they go harder on certain sections and slower on others, can have a big impact on their overall time.
But like we were saying, it's fairly easy to make all these assumptions for a time trial, isn't it? When riders are out by themselves, they're not affected by lots of other things like other riders and vehicles, for example. We've already mentioned that. But one thing you do need to account for is the weight. So we've made assumptions based on the weight, but that isn't going to have a huge impact across our time trial that we're comparing. Whereas if we were taking into account a large climb, for example, then being out by even just 1 or 2 kilos would be a fairly significant source for error.
Yeah, and that's why it's much easier to analyse the performance of a time trial and make decent estimations compared to trying to do it on a road stage, which is pretty impossible because you've got with taking into consideration so many of the riders on the road, there's so many more variables. Yeah, it would be very difficult to do.
What we can see though is the pros are taking aero much more seriously now. There's consultants like Dan Bigham at Watch Shop and Xavier Disley at Aero Coach who are providing advice and services to the World Tour teams, aren't they? So something else that we've seen is Mathieu van der Poel did the time trial of his life earlier in the Tour de France, where he was spotted using the Aero Coach Titan front wheel, which has kind of been regarded as one of the fastest front wheels available for time trials.
I mean, Jumbo, Visma are using it, Ineos are all using it, then they've tested, everything. He also had fancy custom, looked like what Aero Coach bars on his bike as well. But something that is very clear, especially when you speak to these consultants, is that even the non-time trial specialists now, the climbers, there's a lot of them who are significantly more aero and have better drag coefficients than the best time trialists as little as 5 or 6 years ago. We're talking people like Fabian Cancellara, Bradley Wiggins. These guys are more aero now.
The way technology's brought this on is incredible. And I mean, time trials are an area that really highlight the technological advancements that can be made. And something that I was thinking of just then is even some of the riders that traditionally wouldn't have been trying to compete in the time trials, say like Mark Cavendish, for example, they're still having to optimize their positions because the guys at the front are going so much faster, they're having to make sure they make the time cut still. Yeah.
I did hear a rumour that Van der Poel did 452 watts average for that time trial.
But so then if you compare that to Tadej Pogačar, Van der Poel is again bigger and heavier, boy, yeah. So you can kind of expect to see some of those numbers, can't you? It's now time for Hot Tech, and first up this week, Classified have released an update to their Classified hub. So previously this has only been 11 speed, but it's now 12 speed compatible. So the Classified hub, if you're not familiar with it, is a hub which uses planetary gears inside of it to remove the need for your front derailleur and having 2 chainrings on the front of your bike, but crucially allows you to still have that big jump in your gear ratio and ranges, isn't it? Yeah, so the big update presumably is the cassette part of this, which enables it to be 12 speed. And if you don't know much about this and you want to find out a little bit more, Cy did an in-depth feature on it over on GCN Tech, which you should probably go and check out.
Yeah, it's good. My favourite thing about the Classified hub is it means you can be one by at the front and make your bike more aero by removing the front derailleur. Every little helps. Next up in Hot Tech, this is proper cool. These are some custom 3D printed bar end plugs. Got some for you as well.
Oh, thanks, mate.
These have been kindly sent to us from a chap called Matthias from Austria, who says, "Dear GCN team, I'm a fan of your show. I'm a passionate cyclist and a full-time chemist."
Nice.
Oh, sounds like a great guy.
My own heart, yeah.
Sounds like a good guy.
Yeah, and he's combined his passion of chemistry and additive manufacturing, in particular polymer chemistry.
Wow.
I studied polymer chemistry.
So that additive manufacturing is like 3D printing.
Yes, but what he's done is he's got a fancy 3D printer, but he says he's developed his own photopolymer to make these bar end plugs to optimize them. But the quality of them is brilliant. And they're not painted.
No, they're good.
That logo, white GCN logo, is inset into the 3D printing. It's really good. I'm going to get these on my bike. Thanks so much.
I wish I could make some of this. These are very cool.
I'm just amazed that he's developed his own photopolymer. And then he's clear coated them as well at the end to surface finish them. But that is
very cool. Thanks. I'll be putting these in my bike later on. Whilst it might be summer here in the UK, it still rains a lot. And if it rains outside, well, I head inside, try and keep keep dry, ride the indoor trainer.
Oh, me too. I ride indoors all year round in the UK.
Yeah, but something I did spot last week is that Shimano have joined the party of indoor cycling specific shoes with their new range of indoor shoes.
Yeah, well, we saw Nike bring out indoor specific shoes last year, and there's clearly a massive market for this because the kind of spinning and Peloton market is massive, right? And these are people who never ride outdoors. They only ever ride indoors.
Yeah, and so gyms as well.
Yeah, would get an indoor specific shoe. But I think, our assessment of it is that if you, it's worth getting a road shoe that you can use both indoors and outdoors.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using your traditional cycling shoe indoors. I mean, the reason for the indoor specific ones is they're designed to be a little bit easier to walk in indoors, easy to get on and off, and they're super, super breathable. But obviously, that's not particularly suited for outdoor conditions, is it? So, Shimano have quite a few different options available, both men's and women's designs, although I actually prefer some of the women's ones. They've got quite a few different colours and options.
So I preferred the women's Trek last week.
Oh yeah, you did, didn't you? Yeah. So the shoes have got the cleat availability to fit, 2-bolt and 3-bolt fitment. And the key thing here is that the soles are constructed of nylon. So that's similar to what we would see with some sort of slightly lower end or cheaper cycling shoes. And according to Shimano, they rate a 6 on their stiffness index, which, to put that into some context, some of their sort of top market-leading road shoes are rated a 12, which is the highest ranking that they do.
Twice as stiff.
Twice as stiff.
Assuming it's a linear scale.
Yeah.
New update from Strava now. They've added 3D terrain to their heat maps. So if you're unfamiliar, the Strava heat map function is, it shows you where you ride the most. And now you can view it in a 3D perspective, which I think is really cool because if you live somewhere hilly, it kind of shows that and illustrates that better than before and celebrates it. Because I think a lot of the time we take into account just the distance and the speed we ride, but we don't focus enough on climbing and elevation.
I'm always focused on the speed of my rides. I'm not too fussed about elevation. Yeah, but it does look cool, doesn't it? Especially if you live somewhere hilly.
Yeah, and fun fact about the Strava heat maps, which you may or may not be familiar with, but a few years ago, the army got in trouble because all the top secret mega army bases were lit up like a Christmas tree in the middle of like deserts because of all the soldiers doing training runs on the perimeter wall of like these army bases. So you'd see like
using Strava.
You'd see like the Sahara Desert, and then there'd just be this beacon of heat map light.
Wow.
It was just the base, the outline of the base.
That must be what it's like for you at Banner Down Climb.
Yeah, me on Banner Down, just a beacon.
Oh God, anyway. Up next, Neat Cleats, a company renowned for making their shoe storage holders, I guess that's what you'd call them, have made a new product which enables you to align your cleats perfectly on your shoes, removing some of that guesswork. So this works, is available for Shimano cleats, it's available for Look Keo cleats, as well as Speed Play. So it includes a magnetic level, which you can put onto this, and a steel rule that enables you to make sure your shoe's level, and then you can measure the distance between the cleat and the shoe to make sure you can align your cleats perfectly. And it just removes a lot of that guesswork and makes it nice and simple to set up new cleats or new shoes.
A good thing about this as well is that some people might watch this and go, oh, but you don't need that, because you can just look at the markings on the bottom of the shoe. In all my years of trying different shoes, sometimes you get the same brand, the same model of shoe, and the markings are in a different place on one compared to the other because it's like a transfer that's been applied on.
Yeah, it's just printed on. You can never ever go by that. So something I was always taught. It's the same for the markings on handlebars, I was told. Never solely rely on those markings. Always measure, if anything. Measure twice. Nice little engineering rule there for you. Measure twice, cut once. Up next in hot tech are the funky cranks that I promised. These are from a French company called Cerdan, I believe, which was funded on Kickstarter, although it was unsuccessful. But I picked it out because I thought the tech was quite cool. So these are a crank which is a mechanical system designed to remove the dead spot at the top of your crank as you rotate around. Your crank gets the top position and it kind of has that slightly dead spot where it loses a bit of its momentum. So this has a mechanical system in there which then almost kicks the crank forwards about 20 degrees to remove that dead spot. And then somehow...
I mean, we've seen devices in the past that claim to remove dead spots.
Yeah, but this...
How is this different?
This actually has a moving part in the crank because each crank, as it gets that top dead center, moves forwards about 20 degrees or so. as the rest of your pedal stroke goes round, it levels the cranks off, ready to do it all again, ready for the next side. It is quite impressive because it's all mechanical. There's no batteries involved, no electronics, no gizmos to go wrong. It's all mechanical stuff working on pivots and levers and cams.
Yeah, I'd be up for giving those a go and seeing if they can stop me getting dropped.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think you're ever going to be able to. As I said, it was unsuccessful on its Kickstarter campaign.
And even if it had been successful in its Kickstarter, let's be honest, the UCI would have banned it in a heartbeat.
Oh, they would have done. It's a little bit heavy as well. It's like 1,200 grams for the cranks, and they're only single ring compatible. So, yeah. It's now time for our favourite part of the show, Snacks of the Week. Now, before we dive into this, I just want to let you and everyone at home know that it is officially National Chocolate and Almond Day.
Cool story, bro. Anyway, this week, check this out. We've snack box.
That's incredible.
We've been sent a snack box for the snacks. How great is that? Right. And
what snacks are inside?
We've got this Marabou Black Saltocrits.
What is that? Chocolate, I guess.
It's chocolate. I don't know if it has almonds in it. I think it's got black stuff in it. It might be licorice. I don't know. This is apparently Swedish chocolate. Oh, I'm breaking the snack box.
Oh, careful.
Swedish chocolate, and it comes from a chap called Göran Westling, who's from Sweden, and he says this is a beer holder as well as a snack holder. You get 6 bottles of beer in it, apparently.
6 bottles of beer?
When the chocolate's finished, yeah.
Well, more snacks, not next week, the week after, we'll be tucking into the chocolate.
What is Saltocrits?
Try it, find out.
It says, Sedan, 1916 on the wrapper.
It's now time for screw riding upgrades by upgrades.
Where you submit evidence of the upgrades you've made to your bike's equipment or cycling lives for a chance to win the ultimate prize, GCN water bottle or bead on.
Last week we had Big John Russell 60s restoration up against Hillman's Trek gravel bar or flat gravel bar conversion. And I can confirm categorically the winner was receiving 74% of the votes, Big John Russell.
Comprehensive victory for Big John.
Very good.
Both good mods, and just get in contact, Big John, and we'll get your bead on out to you.
This week we've got Cloud Buster. God, people love the good usernames, don't they?
They do, yeah.
It says they found this in their neighbourhood with a free to good home sign on it. My 16-year-old daughter and I braved getting it torn down, sandblasted it all until we got as clean as possible, then repainted and rebuilt it with new tyres, new tubes, a few other odds and ends. Overall, not bad for our first rebuild.
I've never seen a Nishiki before.
Thanks to GCN for the support. Yes, I can't say I've seen one of these before, but I can see why it said it was free to a good home.
Yeah, that looks great though, doesn't it?
But, oh wow, I've just seen I
like the green.
Is that, would you say that's British Racing Green or is it a bit too light?
That's too light.
Yeah, not too light for British Racing Green. Tanwell tyres, leather grips. That's a really cool town bike, isn't it?
Yeah, it is cool.
Who are they up against?
Well, who's your daddy now?
Sorry?
That's the name of the guy who submitted the next one.
Oh, I thought that was just really awkward.
He said he found this cheap mini bike online, and he's changed the drop bar. He's put a new stem on it. He's added a Shimano Tawny group set, and he's also drilled the frame so he can internalize the cables.
Wow.
Nice.
It's tiny, this thing, isn't it? It's like in between a kid's bike and an adult bike.
Yeah, but I think just bombing around town with those flat pedals on, that's proper cool, isn't it?
Drop bars. So yeah, okay, so they did have flat bars and he's upgraded to drop bars.
That bar tape, I don't know what it is, but I like it.
Oh yeah.
I'm also impressed with the bar tape that's on there. I think I've not seen bar tape like that before, but it looks kind of like snakeskin. It's really cool. And
2 bar at the front now, it's got a front mech on it.
Yeah, it's that Tawny group set's really cool. I mean, it's a weird bike.
Very bizarre looking bike.
But it's really cool, and I sort of secretly want it.
2 quite different upgrades this week. We've got the small bike and the town bike restoration, but it's obviously not down to Ollie and I, so head over to the GCN app and vote for your favourite upgrade.
Who's your daddy now?
Please never say that again. Can't
promise that, I'm afraid.
It's now time for the Bike Vault, our second favourite part of the show every single week, where you upload pictures into the GCN app in the Bike Vault, and then Ollie and I pick them out and judge them to be either nice or super nice. If they're super nice, according to us, I ring the cowbell.
And they're in there forever. You can play along at home by voting on all the bikes featured in the GCN app and submit your own too. Anyway, without further ado, this is the most super nice bike on the GCN app last week. Check that out.
God.
Nice specialised S-Works tarmac. And, well, it is very nice, isn't it?
It looks very new, no pedals on it.
It's very new, isn't it? And no pedals on it. So I wouldn't have given that a super nice.
Well, you presumably didn't, but I think it received about 700 votes last week, this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite popular. But this week, right, first up, we've got Dr. Know-How. Okay, yeah, says...
Okay.
It's not yours, is it?
No.
Okay, so this is their Felt AR5. We've got Ultegra Di2. Let's have a look.
Oh, it looks aero, doesn't it?
Oh, it does look aero.
Look at that. Look at the brake caliper he's got on the front there. That's an Omega tri-rig.
Yeah.
Yes, very aero front brake.
Got the funky cranks where you can change the positioning of the chainring. Got accessories behind the saddle.
I'm gonna go super nice on that one.
Yeah, all right, I'll go with that. I'm not
unsure.
I'm a little bit unsure, but I don't want to upset you, do I? It's the first one this week.
Next, we've got Budge 4NS9 IAX. Catchy.
Great.
And he submitted his Columbus Chromor. 1990s bike, that is. Yeah.
Great year, 90s, that was.
Yeah. What do you make of that? I love those retro Mavic Cosmics. Those old logos, I miss those. They were cool.
Yeah, cool.
It's a cool looking bike, but it's filthy.
It is filthy, but I can't see the valves are aligned.
It's filthy though. It's filthy. It's absolutely filthy. Who's your daddy now?
How long have I been here now? What, nearly a year or so? Never have you said anything about the cleanliness of a bike before.
Oh. Crucial for a road bike in the Bike Vault.
Well, according to Ollie, it's just getting a nice, I'm afraid. Give it a wash, submit it for next week.
On there.
Next up, we've got Little Big Rex with, what have they got? Focus.
Zalco Max disc.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I quite like that.
Don't see a huge number of these. And when I see them, I always think, I really like those. They're
Lovely
really
background.
Little bit underexposed in the foreground, but he has lined up his tyres. He's in Biggie Big though.
Yeah.
Biggie medium. Yeah.
And bottles, accessories.
And also his accessory bottle, his storage bottle is hanging out precariously.
Maybe got his camera out there. It's unfortunately going to be a nice from me.
And he's out of focus. Nice.
Just a nice. Right, next up.
King of North Yorks.
Wonder where they're from. North Yorks, maybe.
Harrogate, probably.
Yes.
We've got the Trek SLR6 Madone here.
Oh, that's
perfectly aligned. I'll go with that crank placement. That's okay.
Yeah,
Vector
a little bit.
Power pods on there. Hunt wheels. Schwalbe tyres. Tubeless as well.
I'm going super nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
super
nice. Woo! Next up.
CM Cruz.
Interesting. What is this? An On-One Pick and Flick. What an incredible name.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's dirty, going by your standards.
You need to learn here. Dirt is okay if it's contextual. So if it's like a gravel bike or like a cross bike type thing, a bit of like aesthetic dirt's okay. Not just like rust and grime on a road bike. Not okay.
Okay, this is acceptable dust, I presume.
Yeah.
Yep, fine. So I quite like this. We've got a frame pump on there. The cranks are not quite right.
I think frame pumps can work. The crank is. I'm going to go.
It's like a gravel bike, so you kind of accept that it's a bit sort of.
I think that's super nice.
Yeah.
It's up to you though. It's your call.
God, I've got a lot of pressure on me. I'm not agreeing with you on this. Sorry,
Oh.
I'm putting my foot down. I won't stand for it. We're going to go on to the next one.
Phil Street.
Yeah.
Phil Street with his Trek OCLV Lance bike.
God, look at that.
It's like Lance's bike. It's the vintage OCLV Trek.
I do like these bikes.
US postal colorway. Straight up nice. It's just a nice.
Yeah, it's just a nice. Too many problems with that.
It could have been a super nice. Presented badly. Nice.
Yeah, so that is, I say it every week, it's the end of the Bike Vault, and of course it means it's the end of this week's GCN Tech show. I just wish it never ended.
Oh, yes.
I really do.
Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so that you don't miss future stuff, including...
And do remember actually, check out Ollie's fewest watts for 10-mile time trial video.
Out this weekend, trying to get as aero as I can and make up for my lack of watts by being aero.
Fantastic.